So what makes the DCEU fail where the Marvel Cinematic Universe succeeds? It's a tough question. It really is. And DC's been trying to figure it out for a decade. They have not been able to crack that code as of yet. I feel like the Suicide Squad kind of proves that. Now, reading this Screen Rant article here, the Suicide Squad proves WB learned the wrong lessons from Batman v Superman. And I think this makes some really valid points. But it all comes back to one point. What makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe popular? Is it because of ratings on, of critic, top critics, Rotten Tomatoes? Is it because it gets good ratings on those? Is it because of the humor? Is it because of the storytelling? Is it because of the actors and actresses that play the role? Is it the characters itself? Is it the plot? Is it the villains? What makes it so special? And what makes DC so bland in that regard? Now DC, I will say this. I mean, if you're comparing characters from DC to Marvel, I don't think you would get very many people that could really say that Marvel has better superheroes than DC. Consistent superheroes. No one in the 80s and 90s had Captain America on their lunchbox, or was playing Captain America video games, or watching Captain America series, or the Avengers series. No, they weren't. That is a recent trend that happened with the MCU. Iron Man, you can say the same thing with Iron Man. It was never as popular as, let's say, Batman, Superman. Those were consistent throughout, from the 60s and on. They've been just consistent. They have a strong foundation, a strong fan base. Fans have not wavered on them at all when they have gone through really silly villains in the 1960s that looked just absolutely ridiculous in the old Batman series. We've gone through, Danny DeVito as the Penguin. We've gone through some really, really crazy Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I mean, come on. There's a lot of things that we've done when it comes to Batman that seem like it would break anything else. But it survived. The Batman cartoons were amazing. The Superman cartoons were amazing. Smallville was amazing. Superman Lois is amazing. There's all of these different things. I'm not saying these characters haven't had their ups and downs. They have. But you would think, if you just look at that on paper, you would say Batman and Superman are going to be the box office hits. And let's say Captain America and the Avengers is going to be, failures, or maybe have its, clique of people, but it's not going to be like anything big. But it's actually the polar opposite. And I will go as far to say, the way this article on Screen Rant states it, and I agree with it wholeheartedly in a lot of ways. I don't believe the WB has not learned lessons from Batman v Superman. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think what has happened with DC is they looked over there at Marvel and they're like, you're successful, why aren't you successful? Let's copy everything that you do and we'll do it with our films. Our films are too dark. Well, we'll make it, put more humor in it. That'll attract people. We'll add, a familiar cast, Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill. Will people, stars that people know, will make fun films like the Suicide Squad, and people will react to it because it kind of reminds us of, like, let's say something like the Suicide Squad is kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. But one thing that DC has always done a terrible job at, that Marvel has just blown out of the water, and that is world building. Kevin Feige is a genius when it comes to world building. When I watch a Batman film, or a Superman film, Superman is probably a better example of it. When I watch a Superman film, I think to myself, this will probably lead up to the Justice League, but then what? There's always going to be something that goes on. With Marvel, when they say, okay, this is our plan, this is our 10-year plan, we're going to have all these movies, all these different phases, and each single one of those movies, even though they're completely different characters and completely different situation, they're all going to connect in some form or fashion. That is excellent world building. Every single one of those, no matter if it's and I won't go so far, I'm not like a lot of people. A lot of people are like, oh, those Marvel films are just genius. No, they're not really genius. They're not really great films. They're rewatchable films, but the reason why they're rewatchable is because of the world building that takes place in it. It's like when I was getting my wife, who isn't interested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm like, we got to start it. The very first movie that come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then we got to work our way through. Because just watching something in between it, you don't know what's happening. You really don't know. You can be watching, the first Captain America movie, but not really know what's happening in the larger picture of the MCU. DC's never had that. DC's always failed when it comes to that. Every DC film feels like a standalone. It really does, even if it's not. It feels that way. And until DC learns that people react for whatever reason, they react to things that feel epic. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. Star Wars is a very good example of what I'm talking about here. Star Wars, no one will ever say, not even a Star Wars fan, will go so far to say any of the Star Wars movies are the single best movies of all time. They're not. They're not. Not any of the series, not any of the movies. You can say the original trilogy was a great movies, but they weren't like great movies. A lot of them didn't stand up really to the test of time, to a certain extent, at least in my point of view. And I kind of feel like the prequels actually did stand up a little bit better now than what they did, before the sequel trilogy. But that being said, what makes Star Wars so amazing is it's got lore to it. It's got epic world building. I can sit here, and I've done it many times here on Rants or Us with my co-host Lance for 20 years. We'll just sit around and talk Star Wars. Talk about planets, talk about species, talk about, anything, the Sith, the Jedi, moral aspects when it comes to, like I said, the Jedi or the Sith or whatever. Real life things, and then mix it into, that universe. We do that because we can with Star Wars. Star Wars is great because it feels epic. Lord of the Rings is great because it feels epic. All of these things tie into the exact same thing. The MCU feels great because it feels epic. It feels like if I don't pay attention to everything that happens in this movie, whether I love the movie or hate the movie, I'm going to miss out something that could be a big deal, 5 movies down the road. So people pay attention. People rewatch those movies and rewatch those movies to make sure that they're getting every little Easter egg. They stay on till after the credits just so that they can catch maybe a brief minute of something that might, tie into something, whether it be the next movie or a couple movies down the road. They pay attention to those things. DC never has that. DC never brings that feeling of world building or epicness in any movie that they made. Snyder Cut included. I mean, the Snyder Cut would have felt epic to a certain extent if we known that it probably wasn't the end. If we knew that the chance of a Justice League 2 film was, if we knew that it was near and definite, then it might felt epic. But because we felt like it was bleak at best that they would do it, and now they're coming out with Jason Momoa might even be a director of it, which I think would be a great marketing ploy. I don't know how the movie would turn out. But that being said, DC, learn your lessons in this one regard. It is nothing that you are doing wrong story-wise. It is, or comedy-wise. Your movies aren't too dark. It's not that. It is, you are not giving us a world that we care about. So therefore, when we don't care about the world that is in we don't care about the characters that are within it. That's just the way it is. Guys, let me know what y'all think. Let me know why you think DC fails where Marvel succeeds. And whether DC you think can turn it around. Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, guys, if you enjoy our videos, please like, subscribe, and definitely leave a comment down below. Thanks always, guys. Take care.